So I wanted to actually, I know that you've seen the game plan and I know you've actually worked through it, and that's fine, but I actually want to take some time now to explain it to you and to tell you where it comes from and tell you why it works. And I know that you are in the early stages right now of beginning to understand the power of this thing. But let's just start with the very first and basic directions that have been given to you, and talk about that for a minute. And that is the values. So, but before we get to the specifics, let me ask you a question. Don't even look at your game plan. Shut it down. Don't look at it. I mean, you don't have to shut it down, but just don't look at it.
I'm not looking
And,
at
and
yeah.
if I look to you right now and I say, Ollie, what do you value in life? Just right off the top of your head, what would that be?
Straight off the top of my head, I value the people around me.
Okay.
So my friends, my family, straight away. The elders in my life as well. So people like, like you and Tom and Chloe and Kemp and everybody.
Yep.
What else do I value? I value helping people out. So like
Okay.
extending a hand, like not like people within your tribe and outside your tribe, sort of extending a hand to anybody that needs it. I think that's off the top of my head.
Okay, so this is great. This is fantastic. And this is how it starts. It's that simple. It is you going through the mental exercise, and it takes about as long as you just did. And if you were to just write down those things that you just told me, just on a piece of paper, and say, I value my tribe. I value the relationships. I value my mentors that I'm working with. But then what I want you to do is, okay, and all of that, by the way, is perfectly normal and the way it should be. But I also want to ask you to think about, okay, how about your body? How about your finances? How about your desire for a family? How about maybe you want to have grandkids? How about sort of expand the lens out a little bit and start to think about, rather than just what's in the immediate, because that's what was in the immediate with you right this minute. It was
Yeah.
that's right now, right off the top of my head, which was perfect. You jot those things down, and then you say, okay, now let me just stop for a minute and say, what are my, instead of me asking you the way I did it, I'm going to ask it a little bit different. What are your values? They're connected, but one leads to the other. First, I say, what's important to you? What do you value? And then I say, what are your values? Makes you think about it a little bit differently, doesn't it? If I
It
say, what are your
does. And
values?
it's almost like what are the I'm trying to think it through. It's sort of there's individual pieces that make up, why I value what I value, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
is what I'm trying to
Right.
get at. And maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So there are so many people out there who have actually never gone through this exercise before. I
Yeah.
would say the vast majority of people have never really taken the time to stop and say, what truly are my values? Now, if you go up and you ask them, they'll tell you what their values are straight away, right off the top of their head. The problem with that is, it's not a problem, but the reality of that is that they're telling you kind of at a moment in time what they're valuing in that specific moment. And those things can drift depending on the time of day, what your relationship status is, how you're doing at your job. All these things can move around. And what we're looking for here is something that's a little more lasting, a little more stable, and something that you're actually going to drive to. So what I'm trying to get you to do in this stage one is think through, what do I truly value? And you don't have to have big, fancy, sophisticated, you know, educationally peer-reviewed information. You just have to have things like, I value a healthy body. I value making enough money to pay my bills. I value whatever it is. You just write them down and just let yourself sort of free brainstorm, get them all down on paper. And then I want you to really start to look at that list and cull it down to fewer and fewer and fewer until you get down to no more than 10. You can have less than 10, but I want you to have no more than 10. And 10 is fine, but 8 are fine, 6 are fine. But these are things that you are going to put in place, and that you are going to review them weekly, if not daily. And you're going to make sure that these things are really what you value. I value, and I'm just going to make it up. I'll make it up for myself. I value good health. What does that mean? What does that mean for me? When I say I value good health, that means I'm going to eat right, I'm going to sleep right, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to do all these things. But until I've taken the time to write it down, it may be sort of a, do I feel like it today, or do I not feel like it today? And you just sort of allow yourself to be blown around by the winds of the day. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. One question I do have is I hear it come up, values and principles. What's the difference between values and principles? Is there a difference?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, if I were to look up the words, a principle, I think in this, now that you said it, and without having the definitions right in front of me, I would say that you could use them interchangeably for this exercise. I wouldn't have any problem with that, because you're still getting it done. And don't allow perfection to be the enemy of good enough. If that works for you and you say I'd rather use the word principles, then so one is a little more specific. Like the principle is more specific. It's sort of more tactical, and a value is a higher level, overarching sort of concept. Okay,
I got you. Yeah, that makes sense. That's that. Thank you for clearing that up.
You're welcome.
So
go ahead, ask your question.
No, you keep going.
I was just going to say, that very act alone, and putting him down in writing and putting him on the first page of your game plan, really starts your mind spinning. You start thinking about this stuff. And like I said, it's the step one is putting it down in writing, which is when I say the magic happens. But the thing that keeps the magic going over time is the review, because you can go through a week where all hell breaks loose, and you're here, there, and everywhere. You're busy, you're tired, you're doing stuff that's out of your normal routine. But you know what? If you go back on the weekend and you review your game plan, and you go back and you review your values, it recenters you, it resettles you, it allows you to get back and say, how did I do on my values this week? Maybe my value is I want to have I don't know, an amazing relationship with in your case, with my girlfriend, or my wife, or my partner, or my whatever. And you go back and you look at, did I really live that value this week? Did I really do that? And if you don't have it down and you're not reviewing it, you don't know if you did or not, or you just sort of pass it off as, I'll get to that later, which is something that we all do all the time.
Yeah, okay. It's interesting, and then you keep going back. And I don't know, do you think that do you think that every single week you're a shining example of your values?
Absolutely, yes, yes.
Do you sometimes falter and got to come back and sort of be like, actually, I didn't do that this week? Like, does that ever happen to you? If you look at your values, you're like, damn, I actually didn't do it this week.
Oh my goodness, yeah, such a great question. You are absolutely correct. Are you going to live up to your values all times, all places, with all people? Oh, hell no. You're not going to. You're going to stumble and fall, and you are going to make mistakes, and you're not going to get it right. And that becomes a learning moment, or a learning stage for you, when you wake up and realize, I have not been living by my values. And so that's an early warning indicator that you might be headed down a path that you don't want to be headed down. The other thing that can happen, and will happen, and I encourage it to happen over time, is that your values change. They evolve. The 10 that you have today may not be the 10 that you have 2 years from now. I hope they're not, because I hope that as you grow, and things that are important to you in terms of your values become a normal part of your life, they become a normal part of your habit, you don't have to really focus on so much anymore, and you can add some new values in there and continue to improve as a person. So it's a continuous pursuit of improvement.
Continuous pursuit of improvement. I love that. That's excellent. All right, so that's really, really interesting. And so I want to know, I want to go now. I want to share my game plan. Can you walk me through sort of, let's stick on this topic of values, I think. Can you walk me through, I guess, the importance of values? And this is my actual game plan here. Can you walk me through the importance of values here, um, for the entire puzzle as it is, maybe? I don't know if that's a great way to describe it.
You bet. No, this is great. And first of all, let me compliment you for not having 10. You have 9. That's great.
Thanks.
I don't know if you stumbled into that by accident, or that you just sort of came to the end and said, that's really enough for me right now. And again, you certainly have more than 9 things in your life that you value that are important to you in terms of overarching items that are worth a lot to you. But you got 9 listed, so you're already an example to others that in some cases less is more because you're more focused. And so, thank you for showing them, by the way. This is great. And the reason that these are so important is because, let me just ask you about your first one. Why did you come up with consistency as a habit, and what does that mean to you?
I think consistency is a value, like being consistent. It's something that I've struggled with in the past. It's something I'm really trying to focus on. And the reason I put it sort of first place there was because I was like, when I was doing this, I was like, you know what, I need to get consistent with a few things in my life. If I put it as, my first value, even though I haven't held it as a value in the past, if I put it as my first value and sort of keep at it like that, then it will become a value that's ingrained in me. So by, just through the act of putting it down there and revisiting it, I would become more consistent, which is, what was my goal where I wasn't consistent already.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So you've recognized that about yourself. You realize that it's something that you value and that you want to get there, meaning a life of consistency over time applied in all these different areas of your life. And now, because you're looking at this every week, it's going to remind you of that, and you are not going to do it perfectly. But you're going to do it a lot better than you did. I promise you. Um, it's interesting. I was talking to Chloe a couple days ago about her game plan, and she said, "Oh my goodness, John came home and said, 'Why are you so motivated? Why do you have all these things all of a sudden that you're wanting to work on and you're asking questions about and you're pressing forward on?'" And she said, "It's because I did my game plan and I know where I'm going. I know what I want to do. I know when I want to get there." It all starts with your values, though. That's the first step. I want to ask you about another one that I see here that fascinates me, just because I think it's a good example for people to think about. Think in millennia. That's awesome. Tell me about that.
That thinking in millennia, yeah, I think that I actually I do think that a lot of people think pretty short-sightedly. It's sort of like, all right, and that is great. You do need to be like, all right, what actions am I going to do tomorrow, and that kind of thing. I think the where Think Millennia comes in as a value for me, it's got two benefits for me. Number one is it reminds me that I should be thinking longer. That I should like it's um yeah, that I should be planning goals out far, far, far in the future, um, far past where I exist, right?
Yeah.
Something that, I've got to not only think about me, but think about my family and generations of my family. And what does that mean? And I think that's it's a really, really interesting problem to have because it puts your sort of ego in check, I think. So it reminds you, hey, you're not actually around for that long. And you need to think about what comes next and how you want to live and leave your mark on the world. The other thing it helps with is that uh, with that short-sighted thinking, I think you can get pretty anxious sometimes, and you can sort of be like, oh no, all this stuff is coming down on me right now. But if you extend your vision, to millennia, well, then your problems that you think that are massive right now aren't really that big. And that's where it helps me.
That is great. That last point that you made is actually phenomenal. And that I remember when I was your age, and I remember thinking, if I don't do all these things by such and such a time, oh my goodness, I've failed at life, and I'm not even 30 years old yet. And as you and I have spoken about before, you have so much life left to accomplish, so many things that you can't even imagine. You just got to keep going. You got to wake up every day and keep going. And even at my age, I still have a game plan. I still have 10-year goals. I still have lifetime goals. And by the way, they've evolved over time because some things have become more important to me for some reason. And I want to put them on there. So I think you're right to think beyond just the immediate that you're in. And as I've said to many people many times, honestly, life is way more about the journey than it is about the destination. That is how you truly have an impact on the world, is by living your life every day on your journey, being the best possible you that you can be. The results are going to take care of themselves over time. They really are, but you just got to keep going right where you're at. I want to ask another question that well, no comment and then a question. Your ninth one there, extend your hand to your tribe. That's kind of consistent with what we've talked about at the very beginning. So I'm glad to see that there. When I asked you, what do you value? And you talked about the people that are around you, extending your hand to the tribe. And I think I know what that means. But the question I wanted to ask you is, do you now see how these values start to help you honestly put into words who you as a person identify as? Do you see that? Do you see what I'm talking about when I say that?
Yeah, absolutely I do. I think that I think about after I laid out these values, I sort of understand now why people like how it's really important for you to lay out your values. Um, I think that by laying them out, I realized what is important to me. And it was going to be actually a question that I asked you is how do you help how do your values, like writing down your and starting with your values in the game plan, help you form the rest of the game plan, more specifically the goals. But I think I can even answer that off of the back of your question, is that it allowed me to look at my goals. Number one, come up with a few of my goals. And I think also more importantly, when I had too many goals in specific areas, really look through those goals and be like, oh, well, actually, this one right here, although it sounds interesting or it sounds nice, it actually doesn't align with my values. And when I really think about it, that just might be it's an ego-driven goal or something, that actually doesn't matter too much to what I want to achieve and what I want to do. So that was really interesting. But as well as that, how does it uh, form the person that I am? It gives me a really good, and in conjunction with the goals, it gives me a really good ability to qualify what I'm doing, whether something is in line. I can if I'm about to do something and thinking about doing something, I can sort of qualify, is that actually in line with my values, or is that in line with my goals? And then from there, make a decision of, okay, well, actually, should I really be doing that thing, or should I be focusing on something else? And that's been a big utility of it, but it's also, I think, been that's how it has defined my character a bit.
There you go. Yeah, and it becomes a filtering mechanism, and that's what you described for the things that you're considering doing in your life. Let's take another one of yours. Fail fast. I love that. What that says about you to me when I look at that is I say, this is a person who is going to take things on and who's not going to be afraid to try new and different things that he's never tried before. And I want to know, is this going to work? And if it's not going to work, I want to fail fast so that I can get on to the next thing, take the lessons that I learned from that quick failure and move on to the next thing and do it better, stronger, and faster. So yeah, you're essentially putting in the high level pillars of your existence who you are as a person by listing these values, and then everything else can flow from that. And and you said it. You already said it. It was your words. I put some things down that weren't consistent with my values. Bam, there you go. What a great concept to now apply to the rest of it. And again, you notice how everything all of a sudden starts to come into focus. Instead of this fog that's all out there, everything is started to come into focus, which lays the groundwork for what you're about to do next.
That's perfect.